chaotic is, yeah, that's how I would describe buying in Atlanta at a trade show. It's overwhelming. It's a little scary, but it's so fun. Buying at a trade show is like a crazy, confusing rush and combination of like your feet feeling like they're gonna fall off, but also your eyes being so happy looking at all the beautiful, amazing things and displays. So I'm gonna take you through what it was like to buy for my small shop at the biggest trade show in the country for gift and home, the Atlanta Market in Atlanta, Georgia. We went there to exhibit because my brand goes to these shows and sells our items to other shops. But while we're there, we have the opportunity to also purchase wholesale from other brands for our storefront, where I stock my items from my brand as well as other curated brands and items. One of the most interesting things about Atlanta that isn't necessarily true about the other big trade shows like New York Now is that there are permanent displays in addition to the temporaries. And that's something I didn't really understand about Atlanta when I first decided to exhibit there. Basically, the permanent showrooms are there all year round. They are staffed by local staff. And there's a lot of like rep groups that host a bunch of different brands in one showroom, but there's also brands that are so big that they have their own showroom and they're there all the time. Temporaries is what my brand did and what thousands of other brands did, which was they hauled all of their items, their displays, and usually one of each item or a couple of each item to a 10 by 10, 10 by 20, sometimes even larger booth on the temporaries floors. So there's just big, empty, open space that they set up. The show sets up these hard walls, and then you can set up your display there. Basically, if you're a buyer, you want to hit both, because if you skip the temporaries, you're going to miss some real gems, especially like brands that are more up and coming and are different from what you might see at, other boutiques and larger stores. But you definitely want to hit the permanents too, because there are so many good brands to see in the permanent. So we were super excited to tour both of them. It was super helpful to know what we were looking for ahead of time. So going into it completely blind would probably be super overwhelming. It was still overwhelming because there's just so many things to look at and so many different brands. It can get kind of confusing, but we had a kind of a list of what brands we wanted to see, people that we already had stocked in our store, as well as a couple of brands that we just wanted to check out and consider adding to Meadow. And so we had our list, and we were also able to Google them like ahead of time what their booth number was going to be. And without that, I have no idea how we would have found them in the permanents, because it's a maze. And when you're walking through the halls, like, there's so much to see. It's all glass, so you can see into all of the displays. It's very, very overwhelming. But yes, to minimize that sense of overwhelm, definitely Google ahead of time who you want to see. If you also know like a general category you're looking for, you can kind of go off of the guides and directories they have. So if you're interested in Christmas, there's like floors of Christmas that you can go look for ahead of time. And then in the temporary side, they have the floors broken up by different categories. So it'll be like clothes, and it'll be like baby clothes, and it'll be like bath and soap. My floor that I was exhibiting on was general gift. So that was kind of a whole bunch of variety. But yeah, there's 17 floors just in the temporaries, and there's 3 buildings. There's just a lot to comb through. So definitely recommend just having a general idea of what you're looking for. But the show is like 6 days? It's like 6 days long. So you do have time if you want to go through it all. and you will definitely get your steps in. The dogs will be barking. Something you definitely want to know ahead of time as a buyer is just to ask for minimum order quantity, minimums per product, and who will pay the shipping or how much it will cost. Obviously in Atlanta, almost all the brands are based in the US. It's no big deal. Shipping isn't a big thing, but if you're an international brand or you're going internationally, you want to keep that in mind. The opening order minimum can sometimes be different. So you want to ask what their opening order is, and then also ask if they have a different returning order minimum. Then you want to ask if they do free freight or free shipping, or how much the shipping costs and at what point you will pay. There's also something called net 30, net 60, net 90, and that is really important to know as a buyer as well. Basically, that means will you pay 30, 60, or 90 days after the order is placed or after the order is shipped. I actually prefer to be charged upon ordering or upon shipment because honestly, I just kind of will forget that the order exists. And if I'm charged like 60 days later, I'll be like, wait, what is this? So I would just rather be charged upon ordering. I just feel like it's easier to manage finances that way, but every business is different. And some people prefer to be charged later because then they can put off paying for it. And usually you'll be able to get the item into your store and probably sell some of them before you have to actually pay for it. So it's up to you and up to what the brand is willing to do. So that's something you may want to ask if you're interested in that. Another thing to keep in mind is the minimum per item or per SKU. So usually each item is referred to as a SKU, which means stock keeping unit. For example, we have our gel pens. This is a different SKU than this because they are two different colors and we have to track them individually when we're selling them online. So they have different SKU numbers. Some brands will have minimums, for example, for a category. So you have to order at least 10 pens to order any pens at all, but they could be any color you want. That's more rare than having a minimum order per SKU. So there might be a minimum of 3 or 6 of the green pen if you want to order any green pens at all. And then another minimum of 3 or 6 for the pink pen. And most brands will have like a higher minimum SKU. I try to keep it low for my brand because we have so many SKUs, but if there's a smaller amount of SKUs, the odds are the minimum will be something like 6 or 12. And I honestly cannot tell you why 3, 6, 12 or divisible by 3 is the numbers that people normally use, but that's what I've noticed. So if you say like, oh, I want to add the green pen to my order, they may just go ahead and charge you and add 12 to your order. So just be aware of that because they may not say like, okay, the minimum is 12, that's what you're gonna get. They might just add it without thinking about that, which I've had brands do, and it's never been a problem. I assume that they'll just give me the minimum. But something you want to clarify if you do want more than the minimum or if you don't know what the minimum is. Another great question to ask is whether the brand is running a show special. For my brand, we offered a percentage discount. So if you are kind of just browsing and you think about maybe I'm going to go home, I'm going to order online, or I'll contact them later to order, that might be perfectly fine. But if they're running a show special and you know you want to stock that brand or you want to reorder from a brand, it might be worth placing the order at the show, and that's better for the exhibitors too. So you want to ask if they're doing any sort of discount or show special, and you might be able to save some money. I hope that was helpful, just to give you kind of a taste for what it is like to be a buyer at a show. I am super excited about the brands that I added to my store from buying in Atlanta. So I would say it was definitely worth it to go and check it out. It was also fun to just meet a lot of new brands and new people and get to chatting with the owners occasionally, which can be really meaningful if you are running a storefront, so that you can kind of talk to your customers about the brands that you carry and why you chose them. And it makes it more special and gives that human connection. Overall, I would say it's a huge win, definitely beneficial for my storefront. If you guys have any other comments about what it's like or questions that I could answer, I would love to help with that. So just leave any questions you have in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe.